The cold emptiness of space stretched endlessly around the hospital ship. Aegis Mercy. Its massive hull glimmered under distant stars, carrying the wounded from the front lines of humanity's war against the Outer Rim raiders. Inside, the corridors were filled with quiet chaos medics rushing between rooms. The soft beeping of life support machines and the distant hum of engines vibrating through the metal floor. For months, humanity had fought tooth and nail to protect its colonies, and this ship had become a lifeline for countless soldiers. Civilians and children caught in the crossfire. Captain Rena Halvorsen walked briskly along the bridge, her eyes scanning the holographic display floating in the center of the room. A small bead of sweat ran down her temple. "Reports from the fleet?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Lieutenant Cade, her second-in-command, shook his head. "No unusual movement detected, ma'am. Outer sensors show standard traffic, nothing threatening, yet." Rena frowned, her instincts screaming that something was off. She'd been a soldier long enough to know the calm before a storm. Her hand hovered over the communication console. "Keep monitoring. Alert every department to be ready for anything. I have a feeling we're about to be tested." The warning came faster than anyone expected. An enormous silhouette appeared on the outer sensor grid, a massive alien dreadnought. Its dark metal surface bristling with weapons that could rip through the hull of a human warship without hesitation. Its presence was not just a threat, it was a statement. The Empire, notorious for crushing worlds without mercy, had chosen their target. A hospital ship. Panic began to ripple through the crew. "They can't be serious," muttered a medic, her hands trembling as she stabilized a patient. "Attacking a medical ship? That's a war crime." Rena's face remained calm, but her mind raced. "Everyone, stay focused. Panic will get us killed faster than their weapons. We survive this, then we fight back." The dreadnought moved closer, its massive cannons powering up. The first warning shots tore through the ship's shields, hitting the hull with a force that shook the Aegis Mercy to its core. Alarms blared as fires erupted in the lower decks. Medics and soldiers scrambled to safety, dragging the wounded toward reinforced corridors. "Shields at 50%, Lieutenant Cade shouted. There. Cutting through fast, Rena took a deep breath and made a decision that would define the coming hours. Initiate the diversion protocol. All non-essential systems to silent mode. Deploy the medical pods as decoys. We're not going down without a fight, or without protecting every life aboard." Crew moved with precision despite the chaos. Tiny pods designed to look like escape shuttles, but packed with holographic decoys and emergency medical supplies. Shot out from the ship, scattering in different directions. The dreadnought's targeting systems locked onto one, then another, but each pod vanished, as if swallowed by the void. Leaving only empty space in its place, the alien ship fired again, but this time Rena was ready. Full reverse thrust. "Take us into the asteroid belt," she commanded. The Aegis Mercy groaned under the sudden maneuver, weaving through massive rocks that could crush even the largest ship. The dreadnought followed, but its size worked against its slamming into asteroids and narrowly avoiding destruction. As the chaos unfolded, Rena glanced at the medbay. Despite the attack, the medics worked tirelessly, their hands moving over injuries that would have paralyzed ordinary humans with fear. In that moment, she realized the true strength of humanity wasn't in weapons or ships, it was in courage. In the refusal to give up when all odds were stacked against them. Hours passed, but the Aegis Mercy refused to fall. And then Rena saw it flicker on the sensor grid. A single human warship, fast, sleek, and deadly, had appeared. It wasn't part of the fleet. They had been dispatched in secret. Its purpose was clear. Strike at the heart of the dreadnoughts. Weapon system, while the hospital ship survived the front lines, the battle was about to turn. And when it did, the Empire would realize that attacking humanity's mercy was the gravest mistake they had ever made. Rena's lips curved into a small, determined smile. "They wanted to break us," she whispered, "but they're about to see why humanity never surrenders." The camera of the ship's internal surveillance captured it all. Chaos, fear, bravery, and ingenuity. And deep in the darkness of space, the first shots of humanity's clever retaliation began to light up the void. The first blasts from the human warship struck like thunder in the void. Blue-white beams of energy tore across the dreadnought's hull, slicing into its weapon arrays. The alien flagship reeled, its shields flickering as fire blossomed across its surface. On the bridge of the Aegis Mercy, the crew erupted with hope. For hours, they had endured a storm of destruction, certain each moment might be their last. Now, finally, someone had come. "Identify that warship," Captain Rena Halvorsen ordered, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. "Lieutenant." Cade's eyes widened as the data scrolled across his console. "It's the Valkyrie, stealth cruiser classified Black Ops project. I didn't even know it existed." Rena exhaled slowly. Humanity always kept surprises hidden in the dark, and the Empire had just stumbled into one. The Valkyrie danced through space like a phantom, its engines burning silently, its weapons cutting with surgical precision. While the dreadnought turned its massive cannons to target it, the human ship slipped between asteroids, firing in bursts that crippled enemy systems one by one, but the battle was far from over. The alien commander aboard the dreadnought was no fool. A massive reptilian figure stood at the center of its war chamber, claws drumming against the command chair. Its eyes glowed with rage. "Destroy that phantom ship," it hissed, its voice echoing through the chamber. "Tear the humans. Mercy vessel apart, piece by piece. No survivors." The dreadnought shifted tactics. Instead of brute force, its secondary batteries activated smaller, faster turrets designed to pick off agile fighters. Hundreds of glowing red beams crisscrossed space, forcing the Valkyrie into evasive maneuvers. Rena gripped her chair as the hospital ship shook again under enemy fire. Panels exploded, smoke filling the bridge. "Report. Shields down 2. 30%, Cade shouted. Structural breaches on decks 5 and 6 were sealing them off. Rena's voice hardened. "Keep us alive. That's our only mission." In the medbay, chaos reigned. Doctors and nurses worked through fire and smoke, sealing wounds, dragging the injured into reinforced compartments. A young medic named Leora refused to stop, even as ceiling panels collapsed around her. She held the hand of a wounded soldier, whispering, "You're not dying here. Not while we still breathe." That spirit the refusal to let go burned. Through the entire ship, the Valkyrie transmitted a coded message to the Aegis Mercy. Rena read it quickly. "Hold your ground. We're about to blind them." Then the stealth cruiser vanished. One moment it was visible, the next, it dissolved into nothing's cloaking system, activated. The dreadnought's weapons fired blindly into the void, but there was no target. Suddenly explosions tore across its bridge. The Valkyrie had infiltrated the giant warship's blind spots. Slipping past shields and striking power cores directly, the alien commander roared in fury. "Find them! Find them now!" But it was already too late. Humanity's genius had always been its unpredictability. The Empire, built on brute strength and overwhelming numbers, had never faced an enemy that fought with both brains and courage. On the Aegis Mercy, Rena saw the opportunity. "Bring online the countermeasure drones," she ordered. But Captain Cade hesitated. "Those are untested prototypes, then this is the perfect time to test them." Rena cut him off. Small drones, barely larger than a human head. Launched from hidden bays in the hospital ship. They weren't weapons in the traditional sense, they were signal disruptors. They emitted pulses of false data, creating dozens of fake signatures across the asteroid belt. To the dreadnought sensors, the empty space suddenly filled with phantom fleets. The alien ship faltered, firing wildly at illusions while the real threat remained invisible at that exact moment. The Valkyrie struck its most devastating blow. Direct hit to the dreadnought's spinal cannon, the main weapon designed to vaporize entire cities. The explosion was so massive it lit up the asteroid field. Fragments of burning metal spinning into the void. Cheers erupted across the Aegis Mercy. For the first time since the attack began, hope felt real, but Rena knew better. She leaned forward, her eyes cold. "This isn't finished." Ship that size doesn't go down easy. As if to prove her words, the dreadnought's remaining engines roared to life. Damaged but not destroyed, it turned its fury toward the hospital ship again. If it couldn't win, it would take thousands of wounded humans with it. Rena stood tall, her hand tightening into a fist. "So that's how it is," she whispered. The next phase of the battle had begun, and if humanity wanted to survive, they would need to use every shred of cunning, every spark of genius, to turn survival into victory. The dreadnought burned like a wounded beast, flames crawling across its shattered armor. But even crippled, it was still a monster of war. Its engines flared with sickly green light as it turned toward the Aegis Mercy. The intent was clear. If it could not destroy the Valkyrie, then it would drag the hospital ship down in flames. On the bridge of the Aegis Mercy, Captain Rena Halvorsen watched as the giant ship loomed closer on the holodisplay. Its outline was broken, jagged, leaking atmosphere into the void, but its main batteries were still charging. "They're going to ram us," Lieutenant Cade whispered, horror creeping into his voice. Rena's jaw tightened. Them. The medbay shook violently as another barrage struck the hull. Injured soldiers, children, and refugees screamed as smoke and fire spread through the decks. Yet the medics pressed on, their hands steady even when everything around them shook. Leora, the young medic, was drenched in sweat and blood that wasn't her own. She didn't look up when the ceiling cracked above her. She only whispered to her patient, "Hold on. Just a little longer." The dreadnought's main cannon glowed brighter, the energy inside it building like a sun ready to erupt. It fired. The hospital ship would be gone in seconds. The Valkyrie reappeared in a burst of speed, its hull battered from near misses. The captain, Commander Sorenvale, opened a direct channel to Rena. His voice was calm, steady, almost too calm for the chaos around him. "Captain Halvorsen," he said, "we can't kill that dreadnought with firepower alone, but we might blind it long enough for you to escape." Rena narrowed her eyes. "Might." Soren gave a thin smile. "That's the best kind of chance humanity has ever needed." The plan was insane. The Valkyrie would use its last cloaking reserves to slip directly into the dreadnought's shadow and deploy a weapon, never before tested in real combat, a quantum scrambler. It would overload the alien targeting systems, turning their sensors into useless noise. But to deploy it, the stealth cruiser had to get close, so close that a single hit could tear it apart. Rena knew what that meant. "You're risking your ship." Soren's eyes hardened. "We're risking everything. It came for a hospital ship. If we don't teach them the price of that mistake, they'll keep coming." The transmission cut. The Valkyrie vanished once more. The dreadnought's cannon roared to life, energy rippling along its massive spine. The glow became blinding, flooding the asteroid belt with green light. On the bridge of the Aegis Mercy, silence fell. Everyone knew this was the end. Unless the Valkyrie succeeded, seconds stretched like hours. Then it happened. The dreadnought's cannon fired, but instead of a focused beam, the energy fractured. Wild arcs of green light lashed across its own hull, slicing into its armor, tearing open decks. Alien crew were vaporized instantly, their screams lost in the vacuum. The quantum scrambler had worked. The targeting systems had collapsed. The weapon had turned against itself. Direct hit on their power core. Cade shouted, eyes wide with disbelief. But the victory wasn't complete. The dreadnought's cannon had destabilized, and now its reactor was in meltdown. If it exploded, the blast would take the Aegis Mercy and the Valkyrie with it. Rena made her choice instantly. "All hands prepare for emergency jump. Lock coordinates to fallback point Epsilon. Medical pods launch, now." Across the ship, escape pods containing the most critical patients shot into the void, programmed to warp out seconds before the hospital ship. It was a gamble. If the enemy regained control, the pods would be easy targets. The dreadnought convulsed, its hull cracking apart. Pieces of glowing metal spun off, colliding with asteroids. The alien commander roared in fury from its collapsing bridge, clawing at controls that no longer obeyed. Its last act of defiance was to send a final command to the fleet: humanity's Mercy's ship must not survive. As the reactor breach reached critical, the Aegis Mercy's engine screamed to life. Space tore open as the emergency jump drive engaged, pulling the battered ship into the void just as the dreadnought exploded. The blast consumed the asteroid belt. A sun born from destruction, shockwaves rippled for millions of kilometers. The Valkyrie, running on its last reserves, jumped a fraction of a second later. Silence returned to space. The dreadnought was gone. On the Aegis Mercy, battered but alive, the crew slowly lifted their heads. The impossible had been done. They had survived. But the cost was heavy. Dozens of decks were gone. Hundreds of wounded had perished when fires spread too fast. The hospital ship was bleeding, but still breathing. Rena stood on the ruined bridge. Her hand resting on the cracked console, she whispered to herself, "They dared to come for us. Now the galaxy will see what that costs." Because this battle was only the beginning. The Empire had not just attacked a hospital ship, they had declared war on humanity's very spirit. And humanity always answered such challenges, not with surrender, but with fire and genius. The Aegis's Mercy emerged from its emergency jump, battered and broken. Drifting above the quiet orbit of a remote colony world, fires still burned inside. Its corridors and hull plates were torn apart as if the ship had clawed its way through hell itself. But it was alive. For 3 long days, the crew worked without rest. Engineers patched ruptures with scrap. Medics treated the endless waves of wounded. The dead were honored with silence before being released into the void. The ship was no longer a proud vessel of mercy. It was a scarred survivor, carrying stories of both tragedy and defiance. But the true impact of the battle came not from the wreckage, but from the recordings. Every moment had been captured. The dreadnought's betrayal, its merciless attack on a medical ship, the screams of children. In the medbay, and the desperate stand of humanity's crew, even the final explosion of the dreadnought was caught, framed by the calm voice of Captain Rena declaring, "They dared to come for us." Now the galaxy will see what that costs. The transmission spread faster than light, across human colonies. On alien trading hubs. In the dark chambers of the Empire itself, everyone saw it, and the galaxy trembled. On neutral worlds, its whispers spread like wildfire. The Empire attacked a hospital ship. Even their enemies never crossed that line. Merchants, smugglers, and diplomats passed the story from port to port, until it became more than news. It became a legend. Among humanity's allies, outrage turned to fury. Old treaties were dusted off, forgotten alliances reignited. What once seemed like scattered voices of resistance now began to merge into something stronger. The Empire had not just struck a blow at humans, they had struck at the very idea of mercy. Inside the Empire, the attack was declared a necessary action. The propaganda machines roared, painting humanity as liars, but in the shadows, even alien citizens of the Empire whispered doubts. If the humans could survive the dreadnought, what else were they capable of? On Earth, the footage was played in the halls of the United Defense Council. Leaders watched in silence as the hospital ship burned and bled, then gasped as the Valkyrie's daring maneuver destroyed the dreadnought. When the video ended, there was no debate, no hesitation. Humanity had always tried to fight smart, to use diplomacy where possible, but this was different. The Empire had crossed the line. The Council voted unanimously. The time had come for retaliation. Captain Rena Halvorsen was summoned. Back to Earth, her ship limping, but still intact. She stood before the council chambers, her uniform torn, her face marked with exhaustion, yet her voice was steady. "They thought a hospital ship would be our weakness," she said. "Instead, it will become our weapon. The galaxy has seen their crime. Now we must show them our answer." The council leader leaned forward. "What do you suggest, Captain?" Rena's eyes narrowed. "We won't match the Empire in numbers. We'll outthink them. We'll make them fear every shadow, every signal, every empty star they pass. We'll strike them with genius, not just fire." It was then the plan began. The project whispered only in secret files, long prepared, but never revealed. Unleashed, Operation Mirror Veil. The idea was simple and terrifying. Humanity would use its mastery of deception, stealth, and cyber warfare to turn the Empire's own fleets against themselves. False signals would lead warships into traps. Holographic fleets would drain their resources. And when the time was right, real human warships, hidden in cloaked wood, strike like wolves in the dark. The first step was to rebuild the Aegis Mercy, not as a hospital ship, but as bait. Its scars would remain, its story already legendary. But now it would carry hidden weapons, jammers, and prototype defenses. To the galaxy, it would still look like a ship of mercy. To the Empire, it would be a lure into a carefully crafted nightmare. As construction began in orbit, the crew of the Valkyrie joined the project. Commander Sorenvale stood beside Rena, his eyes cold. "They think we're weak because we save lives," he said. "Let's use that. Let them come for us again. This time we'll show them the trap." And so humanity prepared not for open war, but for a war of shadows, intelligence, and traps. The Empire had armies beyond counting, but humanity had something they did not: the will to survive at any cost. And the genius to make survival into victory. The galaxy had seen humanity bleed. Soon, it would see them fight back. And when that day came, no empire would ever forget the mistake of striking at mercy. The rebuilt Aegis Mercy drifted silently in the outer rim of an unclaimed star system. To every sensor and eye in the galaxy, it looked exactly as it had before, scarred, limping, patched together with desperation, a hospital ship barely clinging to life, carrying wounded and civilians. But beneath the surface was something else entirely. Hidden compartments carried advanced jamming arrays. Holographic projectors lined the hull. Weapon systems were buried beneath false plating, invisible until deployed. The ship had become what humanity needed most: a weapon disguised as weakness. Captain Rena Halvorsen stood on the bridge, her gaze locked on the stars ahead. "All systems ready?" she asked quietly. Lieutenant Cade nodded. "Everything is in place, ma'am. The bait is shining." And the Empire had already taken notice. From the darkness, an Imperial fleet emerged: 3 cruisers, 2 frigates, and a swarm of smaller escorts. Their sleek black hulls glittered under the star, bristling with weapons. They had come to finish the job their dreadnought had failed: erase the Aegis Mercy and erase humanity's symbol of defiance. On the lead cruiser, the alien commander sneered as the hospital ship appeared on his display. "Pathetic. They dare to limp into our space. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who resist," gave the order. Attack without warning. The first salvo streaked across the void. Lances of red fire aimed to tear the Aegis' Mercy apart. But before the blasts could strike, the ship vanished. Not into hyperspace, not destroyed, simply gone. Confusion spread across the alien bridge. Where did it go? Then 20 Aegis Mercies appeared across the starfield. Each one identical, each one damaged, each one drifting. 2 enemy sensors, every reading was real, which is the true ship. One officer barked, the commander snarled, "Destroy them all." The fleet split, weapons unleashing hell across the false images. Holographic ships exploded, but for every one destroyed, more appeared. Signal jammers twisted reality, sending false readings into their sensors. The aliens were firing at ghosts, bleeding ammunition into empty space. On the real Aegis Mercy, Rena gave the next command: deploy the teeth. Panels slid open along the hull, and hidden missile pods came alive. Swarms of smart torpedoes streaked out, weaving through debris and false signals. They didn't strike the strongest ships first. They crippled escorts, shredded fighters, and cut supply ships. Humanity didn't waste effort. They hunted surgically. The alien fleet reeled in shock. "They're armed," an officer shouted. "It's a trap." But the trap was already closing. From the asteroid belt nearby, the Valkyrie emerged, cloaked until the last second.
Oh.
Its first strike ripped through the engines of a cruiser, sending it spinning helplessly. Its second strike pierced the command ship's shield, shattering its weapons array. Panic erupted across the alien channels. How is this possible? It's only one hospital ship and a single cruiser. But that was humanity's genius. It was never about numbers. It was about control, precision, and making the enemy fight shadows while reality bled them dry. On the bridge of the Aegis Mercy, alarms flared as one of the Empire's frigates locked on, its cannons charging. Rena's face hardened. Give them a false signature. Make them fire where we aren't. The frigate unleashed its barrage, but instead of striking the hospital ship, the blasts tore through one of their own cruisers, which had been tricked by overlapping signals. The cruiser detonated, fragments tearing through its allies. The battlefield descended into chaos. Alien ships crashed into each other, weapons fired at illusions, and in the center of it all, the Aegis Mercy glided untouched, playing the role of fragile prey while delivering death with hidden claws. Minutes later, it was over. 2 cruisers were destroyed, a frigate crippled, and the remaining ships fled into hyperspace, their commanders howling in shame. Silence returned to the system. Among the drifting wreckage, the Aegis Mercy stood tall, its illusions fading, its scars gleaming with a new kind of strength. Lieutenant Cade let out a long breath. We did it. Out. An entire fleet crushed. Rena's voice was steady, but her eyes burned with something deeper. No, this was only the first lesson. The Empire will send more, stronger fleets. They'll come with fury. When they do, we'll be ready again. The recordings of the battle were already transmitting across human space. Soon the galaxy would see not just survival, but the clever destruction of an Imperial fleet by what was supposed to be the weakest of targets, a hospital ship. What once symbolized mercy now carried another meaning as well, defiance. And in the quiet of the bridge, Rena whispered words that would soon echo across the stars. Every time they strike at mercy, it will become their downfall, the galaxy thought. Humans would break. The armadas of the alien coalition had burned colonies, destroyed fleets, and pushed humanity to the edge of survival. Yet the humans did not surrender. Something was changing, and everyone felt it, the silence before a storm, in a hidden station. Orbiting a dead star, the leaders of Earth met in secret. Generals, scientists, and commanders gathered in a dark chamber lit by only a single ring of light above them. On the table lay a set of files marked with one word, Zeus. No one spoke at first. The silence was heavy, filled with the weight of decisions that could end everything. Finally, Admiral Renard leaned forward. His face was pale, but his eyes were sharp. It is time, he said quietly. Project Zeus must be deployed. If we wait longer, we will have no worlds left to save. The room erupted with voices. Some argued in fear, others in anger. We're talking about unleashing something we cannot control, one scientist shouted. Another added, we still don't understand the full consequences. If it fails, we may doom ourselves faster than the enemy can. But Renard's voice cut through the noise. The coalition will never stop. They see us as weak as prey. Hour we wait, millions more die. Humanity must show them what we truly are. Across the galaxy, the alien coalition grew confident. Reports from their fleets told of scattered human resistance, desperate and broken. Commanders laughed in their war rooms, certain victory was near. But in the shadows, human warships were moving, gathering in silence. Captain Elias Varon stood aboard the Dauntless, one of Earth's few remaining dreadnoughts. His crew was weary, hardened by years of running battles. But there was a new fire. In their eyes now, they had been chosen for the first strike. Message from command, the comms officer said. Authorization code, ZEUS-1. We are to proceed. Elias stared at the code for a long moment. His hands tightened on the console. The stories about Zeus had always been whispers, rumors of a weapon too terrible to believe. Now, it was real. He spoke quietly, almost to himself. So this is the turning point. The fleet began its move. Dozens of human ships emerged from hidden bases, their engines burning blue against the void. They carried something new, something no alien sensor had ever seen before. When the coalition scouts detected them, they laughed. A single fleet against the might of thousands. They rushed forward, eager for an easy kill. When their weapons struck, nothing happened the way they expected. Human shields shimmered with strange distortions. Energy blasts bent away. Rail slugs slowed as if space itself resisted them. The alien commanders barked in confusion. Then humanity struck back. The first Zeus strike was unleashed, a weapon of light and thunder, ripping across the void. Entire enemy cruisers vanished in a single flash, their hulls torn apart not by fire, but by space itself twisting and collapsing around them. For the first time in the war, alien fleets screamed in panic. Their formations broke. The ships collided. As captains tried to flee, the humans advanced like hunters, cold and merciless. Every shot was precise, every strike devastating. News of the battle spread like wildfire across the stars. The Coalition Council gathered in shock. They demanded answers. How could the prey suddenly bite back with such fury? How could a species they thought weak wield power that even ancient empires had never controlled? But humans did not explain. They did not negotiate. They only advanced. Back on Earth, in underground bunkers and hidden command rooms, people watched the reports in silence. For the first time in years, they felt hope. Hope and fear, because even they did not fully understand what Zeus was becoming. The galaxy had pushed humanity too far. Now the turning point had come, and there would be no return. The galaxy had sent fleets before, thousands of warships, each armed with weapons designed to break civilizations. Yet every time they faced Earth, they returned with fewer ships, or none at all. But this time, the galaxy was desperate. Council had united every empire that still stood, from insectoid swarms to cold machine races, from energy beings to reptilian warlords, an army larger than any unknown. History now gathered. They named it the Final Purge Fleet. Its purpose was simple: crush Earth completely. No mercy, no survivors. End humanity forever before their strange evolution, their strange weapons, their strange defiance reshaped the balance of the galaxy. Billions of soldiers filled carriers the size of small moons. Armadas stretched across light years. Planets had been emptied of ships just to fuel this one war. The aliens thought numbers would finally overwhelm Earth. But Earth was waiting, from orbit. Massive black shapes began to rise. Titan-class warships shielded with the latest hybrid designs, half-human, human, each carried railguns the size of mountains, plasma lances that could cut through fleets, and weapons no alien had ever seen before. The largest ship among them was the humanity's Resolve. It was not just a ship, it was a fortress. Built in secret for decades, forged from materials mined near collapsing stars, and powered by a quantum reactor that could bend physics itself. At its helm stood Admiral Cade, scarred from decades of war. He looked at the endless alien fleet on the screens. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "They think this is the end of Earth," he said. "They're right about one thing. This will be the end, but not for us." The fleet of humanity spread across the void, wings of fire against the darkness. For the first time in centuries, all human colonies, all outposts, all scattered remnants of Earth's children had united. Humanity was no longer defending. They were fighting back. The aliens moved first. Millions of fighters swarmed like a tide. Carriers launched waves of bombers. Energy cannons fired beams brighter than suns. The void lit up like the birth of a galaxy, and Earth's fleet answered. The first volley from humanity's Resolve tore a gap the size of a continent through the alien armada. Railgun slugs, moving near the speed of light, cut through battleships as if they were made of glass. The aliens screamed through coms, their fleets breaking formation. But they did not retreat. They poured more ships into the fire. Humanity's Titan warships held the line. Shields burned white as they absorbed impossible amounts of energy. Crews shouted as hulls shook under alien fire. Entire decks collapsed. But not one ship broke formation, not one fled, because they knew the truth. This battle was not just for Earth. This was for humanity's place in the galaxy. As the fight raged, Admiral Cade gave the order, "Activate Project Blackstar." Deep in the core of humanity's resolve, engineers worked at consoles glowing. With warnings, weapon hidden even from most of Earth's own people came alive. It was not a cannon. It was not a missile. It was something stranger. The reactor began tearing holes in space itself. From the black rift, gravity surged. Alien ships were dragged, screaming into the void, crushed into fragments, erased without a trace. Fleets that had once conquered whole civilizations were now nothing more than sparks in the dark. But the cost was high. The weapon was tearing humanity's resolve apart. Decks split open. Thousands of crew were lost in fire and vacuum. The ship itself screamed as metal bent against impossible forces. Still, Admiral Cade stood firm. "Humanity endures," he said into the fleet-wide channel. "Even if this ship burns, we will not fall. Fight and fight until the galaxy remembers who we are." Human warships roared forward, guns blazing. Fighters dove through alien swarms, breaking them apart. Battleships rammed enemy carriers, detonating reactors in brilliant explosions. The aliens had brought the largest fleet in history, and still, they were losing because Earth was not fighting for conquest. They were fighting for survival. Survival made them unstoppable. Hours turned into days. The battlefield was filled with wreckage, with burning worlds, with shattered fleets. No side could claim victory yet, but one truth had become clear. The galaxy had underestimated Earth for the last time, and humanity was not finished. Not yet. Galaxy had never seen a silence like this. The Imperial fleet, once stretching across the stars, was broken and scattered. Wrecks drifted in cold space, their burning cores glowing like dying suns. Humanity had struck back harder than anyone thought possible, but this was not the end. The Empire had one last weapon. It came without warning. A shadow appeared at the edge of the solar system. Larger than any ship ever built, it was more a moving fortress than a vessel. Its hull was black and endless, swallowing light. Empire called it the Sovereign. It had been hidden for centuries, built in secret, waiting for the moment the Empire needed absolute power. When Earth's long-range scanners detected it, the room fell silent. Generals, admirals, and scientists stared at the readings. The object was the size of a small moon. Its weapons output was greater than the combined firepower of the fleets already destroyed. "They sent their god machine," whispered Admiral Hayes. The last card they held. The Council of Earth knew what this meant. The Empire was no longer fighting for dominance. They were fighting to erase humanity completely, and so, the final order was given. Defend Earth at all costs. The last human fleets formed up in the darkness of space. Every ship, from massive Titan-class warships to small patrol vessels, stood ready. Civilians evacuated to underground bunkers. The skies of Earth filled with defensive satellites, orbital cannons, and shield stations. It was humanity's last stand. When the Sovereign entered the system, the stars themselves seemed to bend. Its opening strike destroyed a dozen ships in a single beam of white fire. The shockwave rattled Earth's own orbit. But the humans did not retreat. They charged. Thousands of human ships lit the void with railguns, plasma fire, and missiles. Coordinated strikes hit the same weak points, chipping at the monster. But the Sovereign barely flinched. Shields flared and reset, swallowing every blow. Inside Earth's command, technicians worked at impossible speed. Dr. Alara Voss, the scientist who had led the Shieldbreaker project, now faced the greatest puzzle of her life. The Sovereign's defenses shifted with every attack, adapting like a living thing. "We can't bring it down by force," she realized, her voice sharp with fear. "We need to overload it, force its shields to consume more power than it can." Handle Admiral Hayes didn't hesitate. He opened the channel to every human ship. His words were calm, but every captain knew what he was asking. "Fleet command to all units. We're executing Protocol Ragnarok. Overload strike. You know what that means." There was no need for more explanation. Every ship, no matter how damaged or small, knew their role. They would sacrifice themselves to push the Sovereign past its limits. wave after wave of human vessels hurled themselves against the giant. Each ship overloaded its own reactors, detonating at point-blank range to burn through the adaptive shields. For hours, the battle raged. It's a black fortress shining with constant explosions. And then it happened. On the 10th wave, a fracture appeared. Just a hairline crack along the Sovereign's shield barrier. But it was enough. Humanity's last Titan warship, the UN's Nemesis, moved forward. Its captain, a scarred veteran named Kalen Rourke, sent one final message to Earth before the charge. For our people, for our world, let them remember Earth stood unbroken. The Nemesis launched its quantum railgun at full power. The shot tore into the weakened shield, shattering it. The second shot pierced deep into the Sovereign's core, but it was not enough. To destroy it, the Sovereign still lived. That was when Captain Rourke made his choice. He turned his ship directly into the heart of the fortress. The Nemesis went to ramming speed, its engines burning hotter than the sun. The impact split the Sovereign in half. For a moment there was silence. The battlefield was filled only with drifting wreckage, burning metal, and the endless void. Then, the Sovereign's core went critical. Explosion lit the solar system like a new star. Earth trembled. The skies turned white for seconds. And then, finally, the darkness returned. The Sovereign was gone. The Empire's last hope was destroyed across the galaxy. Alien races that had once watched humanity with fear now watched with awe. Earth had survived the impossible. It's not because of superior numbers, not because of ancient weapons, but because humans refused to kneel, even in the face of extinction. The war was not just survival anymore. It was a message carved into the stars. Humanity could never be erased, as the last survivors of the fleet returned home. Battered and broken, the people of Earth looked up at the night sky. Where once they had seen fear, they now saw something else, a galaxy that would never forget the day humanity stood alone against an empire. When one